Paraguayan Electoral Court announced ruling party candidate Santiago Peña as a winner of presidential elections. Trade union movements around the world began commemorations from International Worker Day. Fighting continued in Sudan despite the army and the rapid support forces agreed to a ceasefire. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrelo from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Paraguay's Electoral Tribunal declared the ruling Colorado Party candidate Santiago Peña as winner of the nation's presidential elections 2023. According to the electoral institution, after more than 99% of votes counted, the Peña ticket received 42.75% of the votes, while the runner-up formula that De Alegre Núñez from the new coalition for Paraguay got only 27.48%. On the third place with 22.93% of votes was a candidate for far-right National Crusade Party, Paraguayo Cubas. The presidents of the Argentina, Brazil, Alberto Fernández and Lula da Silva, respectively, as well as Paraguay's President Mario Abdo Benítez, were the first head of state to congratulate Santiago Peña and his ruling mate Pedro Aliana for their electoral victory. The disapproval rating of Peru's President Dina Boluarte rose to 79% in April, while 9 people out of 10 rejected Congress management, according to the new survey conducted by the Institute of Peruvian Studies. According to the opinion polls, only 15% of the citizens interviewed approve of Boluarte's administrations, while 6% choose no option. Likewise, the survey showing the rejection rate of the Peruvian head of state was the highest in the southern region, with 86% of the population agreed that she should resign. And the president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, denounced the existence of plots against her government by some sectors of the opposition in a message to Honduras on International Workers' Day. Castro pointed to the exercise of a smear campaign against her on social media that has been running since she took office in January 2022.
When we assumed the direction of the country, we had two choices: to accommodate and admit the crisis and be indifferent to the suffering of our people in front of those who for generations have delivered our common heritage to particular interests, or to fight and march towards the refunding of Honduras. Today, they are conspiring to destabilize my government. Their goal is to separate the government from the people, to create confusion, discontent, and despair.
In the U.S., protests demanding urgent actions to address the climate change crisis have intensified. Environmental activists interrupted talk by the top White House renewable energy official on Saturday and demanded the Biden administration halt fossil fuel projects. On Thursday, 2 protesters smeared red and black paint on a display case housing artwork at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., and urged President Biden to declare a climate emergency. On Monday, the U.S. Bank of First Republic said will take over by JP Morgan after it became the third North American lender to fail in 2 months. The collapse followed a failure of U.S.-led Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank after investors withdrew funds. In a statement, JP Morgan agreed a deal with the regulators to acquire the majority of First Republic assets, including over $100 billion of loans. In Haiti, Le Noveliste celebrates on Monday the 125 years at the end of the Asian press, witnesses and watchmen of the national history and the oldest French language newspaper in America. It was born as Le Matin on May the 1st, 1898 under the direction of Guillaume Cherkin, and 15 months later, given the difficulties of morning newspapers, it became the current name with the same team and sign line. Since then, it has become a multimedia with printed detailed format and sports, culture, and youth supplements. Its chief director, Frandual, points out Le Noveliste has a life in 125 years, all the turbulences of Haitian thought without ever disvesting from its foundation's principles. Let's take a very short break now, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, the trade union movements around the world began commemorations for the International Workers' Day. In the Philippines, thousands of workers held up peaceful mobilizations through the streets of Manila and other cities in the country. Likewise, a massive protest took place along San Spain Boulevard with thousands of workers from trade unions under the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, calling for an increase in the minimum wage and the government to put an end to the contractualization. They also highlighted the importance of the date, honoring unionists and workers from the McCormick Raper Plant in the U.S. city of Chicago, who on May the 1st, 1886, campaigned to make the city the center of the national movement for an 8-hour day. Brazil's President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva confirmed on Sunday the increase in the minimum wage on the occasion of the commemoration of International Workers' Day. Lula da Silva indicated that as of May the 1st, a 2.8% increase will go into effect, bringing the minimum wage in the country from $242 to $260. In a message to the Brazilian people, Lula stated that in the next few days he will send to Congress a bill that will allow the minimum wage to adjust above the inflation rate on the previous years. Thousands of people demonstrated all across Spain in the framework of International Workers' Day. Demonstrations in central Madrid saw the country's two most prominent trade unions, the Workers' Commission and the General Union of Workers, led several marches for labor rights and justice from the historic Plaza de Cibeles to the Puerta del Sol Square. The protesters also demanded the government to provide protections, wages, and better pension for workers, as well as to provide the struggling businesses and daily wages earners with European standards of work protection. In France, workers gathered to participate in Labour Party's the mobilizations with the unions, expecting more than 1 million people will march through towns and cities on Monday. Hundreds of thousands of people on Labor Day to vent their anger against President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform, with the unions vowing not to stop fighting even after the changes were sent into law. The main march in Paris kicked off at noon, along with the traditional protest road of place due to La République to the Plaza de la Nación. Police has been given last-minute go-ahead to use drones as a security measure and use tear gas in the Toulouse in southern France as tensions dropped during the demonstration. In Greece, the commemoration of the International Workers' Day will not only be focused on the rights of the working class, but a public transport strike possibly carried out by the trade unions will take place in the capital, Athens. These activities are part of the struggles of the social sectors and workers. In Sri Lanka, various political parties and trade unions are commemorating International Workers' Day with various events, including rallies and processions organized in various cities of the country. The National Party issues in Sugatsara Stadium in Colombo with participation of several prominent members of the party, while Sri Lanka Purahaya Peruma is celebrating at the Campbell Park in Burela, led by the party leader, the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Other parties have chosen parks and venues to showcase their celebration of the day. Members of the Russian Communist Party joined in the commemoration of this May the 1st with mobilizations in different cities of the country, such as Novgorod and Volgograd, to commemorate Workers' Day. And in Russia, a freight train carrying fuel derailed Monday after an explosive device detonated on the railroad tracks in the Branson region, the border in Ukraine. The Territory Governor Alexander Bogumas reported from his Telegram channel that the incident occurred at kilometer 136 of the railway line and not one was injured. In a statement, the Russian State Railroad Company specified that the train and locomotive caught fire after derailing. In addition to the locomotive, 7 cars were overturned, with railway management body saying the incident was caused by the intervention of outsiders. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, IL 461, and join our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Fighting is continuing in Sudan despite the army and the rapid support forces agreed to ceasefire and the stems nearly 2 weeks of warfare that has killed hundreds and caused widespread destruction. In light of the rapidly deteriorating humanitarian crisis, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres confirmed he is sending the organization Humanitarian Affairs Chief Martin Griffiths to the region. Guterres further added he based his decision on the unprecedented situation in Sudan as the country's warring factions continue to fight, despite saying they will extend a barely respected 72-hour ceasefire. Thousands of locals and foreign nationals are escaping the fighting in Sudan through the borderline crossing of Arkin or Coastal. Travelers have been forced to spend days on the Sudanese side until they sort out their entry to Egypt. CGTN correspondent Adel El Makuri is at the border with the latest update.
Through the breathtaking landscape of Lake Nasser, a ferry tears the water surface, carrying the hardships of dozens of people who have just escaped the fighting in Sudan. These groups are coming from Coastal, one of 2 land crossings at the Egyptian-Sudanese border, which lately is becoming more popular. Coastal is just a 15-minute ride from Wadi Halfa, the closest city in Sudan to the border. There, people can find more humane conditions during their long wait to enter Egypt.
Because they don't have a huge hotel accommodation space, the citizens of Wadi Alpha invited evacuees to their homes. They opened schools and mosques for families to stay. They have shared their food and drink with us. That's a great humanitarian support, but that also led to a huge crowd, a shortage in food and shortage in fuel.
The journey through Coastal is also much more enjoyable than the other crossing, Arkin. Instead of its lifeless, hot and dry desert landscape, the ride through Lake Nasser's breeze and natural scenery gives passengers a brief yet necessary break. They may have safely escaped the fighting, but what could happen next to Sudan haunts many of them.
I believe there will be a great escalation in the fighting. The evacuation by the French, the Germans and the Americans and others was incredibly fast. While many ceasefire agreements were announced, none was in place. Both sides continued their attacks. Putting all together, I think in the coming days we are going to see an unimaginable clash between them.
After 5 days on the road, Hassan's journey from the Sudanese capital Khartoum ended as soon as he crossed to Egypt through the coastal crossing. But he's still 1,138 kilometers away from his next stop, Egypt's capital, Cairo. From there, he flies 4,400 kilometers to Germany, his final destination in this painful journey. One of the main advantages to come to Egypt through the coastal crossing is that it's very close to the Sudanese city in Wadi Halfa, just 20 kilometers away from the Egyptian border, which means that many people can rest and find some services until they clear their way into Egypt. But one of the downsides is that there are many transportations to reach the Egyptian mainland, and from there, still a very long way ahead to Cairo. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, from Abu Simbel, Egypt.
On Monday, the head of the Chinese diplomacy, Wang Yi, called for reforming the UN Security Council to give developing countries a greater say in the decision-making. During a meeting with Ambassador of Kuwait and Austria, the UN, Wang Yi, considered that the Security Council reform should uphold equity and fairness, increase their representation and voice of developing countries, allowing more small and medium-sized states to have more opportunities to participate in the Council's decision-making. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm from the South, I'm Marrero, and thank you for watching.